Awesome. Well, welcome to today's webinar with High Country Doulas. We are excited to share with you more about your pelvic floor muscles and what that does for you. The pelvic floor might not be something that the mind immediately thinks of when it comes to health and wellness, but it does play a big role in your body's health. Pelvic floor muscles are kind of stretched like a hammock from your tailbone to your pubic bone and from one sitting bone to the other. So if you've taken yoga before, yoga instructors love to share with you and show you where your sitting bones are. But if you are sitting in a chair, you can know they're the bony parts that hit on each cheek underneath you. Pelvic floor muscles also support our bladder, the uterus, our bowel organs, and additionally, those muscles in the pelvic floor work with our abdominal muscles and our back muscles to sort of stabilize and support the spine. The importance of pelvic floor is often overlooked until it is not working correctly. And as women who have given birth before, those of you ladies who have children already, you've probably experienced what happens if your pelvic floor is not working well. So they're hidden from view, but they can be consciously controlled and therefore trained. You can definitely, in most cases, you're able to strengthen that area. So let's go ahead and get started. I am going to share my screen right now. Uh-oh. Let's see if I can access. Oh, hold on one second. Awesome. So welcome everybody to our Strengthening Your Pelvic Floor. We are going to actually be giving you some information so that you can actually on your own be able to do some exercises that will impact the strength of your pelvic floor. My name is Allison Rollins and I am the owner of High Country Doulas. We work with women on so many stages of life, from preconception through pregnancy and through birth and into postpartum. And as doulas, we really know how important the pelvic floor is in your health and wellness as a woman who is trying to conceive and give birth and just be as healthy as possible. So there's a lot of great resources out there. I am not a therapist and I do not have training in pelvic floor, but I do as a doula know how important it is. And today we're going to give you some understanding and ideas of things you can do at home. And then also we know some wonderful pelvic floor therapists in your area if you want to go see them to really get the insights that you need if you're having issues. So as always, definitely reaching out to providers if you're having major trouble is really important. So again, my name is Allison Rollins, and I'm really excited to share with you guys today about strengthening your pelvic floor. So let's go ahead and get started. So what is the pelvic floor, right? So understanding what it is, let's review a little bit of anatomy. And you guys can probably already know a lot of this, but it is important to consider as we're looking through this. So the pelvic floor is made up of sort of these supportive muscles and tendons and ligaments at the base of the pelvis. Those muscles stretch like a trampoline, right? From the tailbone to the pubic bone. Even though the pelvic floor is hidden from view, it can be consciously controlled and therefore trained, much like our arm or our leg or our abdominal muscles. Pelvic floor does support the function of the bladder, the uterus, the vagina, rectum, and providing support and stability to those organs of the lower abdominal cavity. Additionally, pelvic floor muscles are also important in sexual function of both men and women. There are a number of factors that can lead to a weak or loosened pelvic floor muscles. It is most common as a result of childbirth. For men, common causes of weak pelvic floor muscles include surgery for prostate, cancer, bladder or bowel problems, constipation, heavy lifting, and more. The following are really kind of common contributors. So pregnancy and childbirth for women, right? Straining on the toilet can also be one of those. Chronic coughing. So for people, you notice if you've ever had a really bad cough with a cold, sometimes you really know how much that affects our pelvic floor muscles. Heavy lifting as well. High impact exercises, and some people don't think about this, but high impact exercises can really have a huge impact on our pelvic floor. Age, of course, can, and weight. So anybody who has added weight, especially people who are obese. In most cases, it is possible to tighten that pelvic floor muscles and regain control of those. So we're going to take a closer look at that. During pregnancy and childbirth, those pelvic floor muscles get completely kind of stretched out. You know, there's so much weight of baby. Your body is just amazingly dynamic, and you're able to grow a baby and gain all this weight, and then it comes back. But it does do a number on our pelvic floor. So that weight of the baby and those hormones, of course, that relaxin designed to loosen our tissues and the efforts of labor, those muscles really don't stand much of a chance from being impacted like that. Severely weakened pelvic floor muscles, usually following several pregnancies, can cause what we call pelvic organs to kind of slip down into your pelvis. It is called pelvic organ prolapse. Prolapse gives you a dragging feeling in your vagina because of your womb, your bowels, your bladder pushing against those walls of your vagina. This condition is more likely later in life as you age rather than right after birth. But the impact of pregnancy and childbirth and not really taking care or addressing weakened pelvic floor issues can lead you to the path of having that problem later, even if it doesn't significantly impact there. And what I'm finding too as a doula is a lot of our providers are really becoming more aware of the need to have that, so much so that they're incorporating it into their practices, which is really very preventative types of care. So doing pelvic floor muscles after childbirth will prevent and treat stress incontinence. It will also improve circulation of blood to your perineum, which will help reduce any swelling or bruising, and it can rebuild that strength in your pelvic floor. Just remember, everybody's different, and you'll want to check with your healthcare provider to decide how soon after labor it is safe to begin those exercises. Repeated straining. I remember talking about this before. I've worked with a lot of women who are like CrossFit trainers and different, really athletic and very interested in keeping their body fit. But repeated straining of the pelvic floor muscles can occur using the bathroom, chronic coughing, lifting, and also those high impact exercises. So something you want to be careful and make sure you're working with somebody as a trainer who can make sure that you're doing those correctly and it's not impacting those pelvic floor muscles. So straining basically creates a pressure on the pelvic floor, ultimately leading to prolapse. Whether you're lifting weights at the gym or maybe you're doing it for a job or a task, it's important to perform heavy lifting with the proper form and also protecting yourself. Another thing to note is if chronic constipation for you is an issue, it is important to look into getting that treated or getting support for that from a healthcare professional, because chronic constipation can impact that pelvic floor. Super, super important. I will tell you on a personal note, most of my life, I have not had regular bowel movements as a kid. And not until I was an adult did I realize that I had my diet. I had to change my diet to create that. But one of the things that was truly key in becoming more regular and having really good bowel movements was taking gluten out of my diet. And I'm never one to say that that's what you need to do, but sometimes addressing it and getting somebody to support you in that journey, if you're a person who does deal with constipation, super, super important. All right. So as I mentioned before, other causes of weakened pelvic floor are aging and weight. So weakened muscles in general is common with age, right? It's important for us to stay strong. Pelvic floor muscles can, those pelvic floor exercises can be done really at any age and improve any condition associated with a weak pelvic floor. So being overweight for a prolonged period of time can also place more considerable strain. It also increases your risk of leaky urine. All right. So let's talk about the benefits of doing pelvic floor muscle exercises. So before we get to the actual exercises, let's review the benefits of the pelvic, benefits of strengthening. Those benefits do include increased sexual sensation and orgasmic potential, increased social confidence and quality of life, improving that bladder control and bowel control, improve recovery from childbirth and gynecological surgeries, improved recovery after prostate surgery, and reduced risk of prolapse. In order to start pelvic floor muscle training, you must identify your pelvic floor muscles correctly. So if you're in a position where you can do this right now, go ahead and get yourself in a comfortable position, lie down. We're gonna kind of talk through and go through these. If you're not, this is being recorded, so you can always go back and look at this and do this on your own later. So I know all you ladies out there probably heard of a Kegel, right? This exercise involves a conscious drawing up of your pelvic floor, and it will help you get familiar with the feeling of working your pelvic floor. So here's how to perform a Kegel. Start by lying down on your back with your knees bent and your feet on the floor. Squeeze and lift the rectal and vaginal areas as if you were trying to stop yourself from urinating, and hold for 5 to 10 seconds. You should feel a closing feeling when you squeeze. Repeat this squeezing and hold for 5 repetitions. Remember, this muscle, you want to squeeze when this is the muscle that you're feeling that you want to squeeze anytime you're doing a pelvic floor exercise. So I'm sure a lot of you ladies have already done Kegels before. Kegels can be important both for men and women. It is important to do them. Sometimes I tell women, like, if you forget to do them, stick a couple sticky notes. You can do them when you're sitting, lying down. A lot of other cultures are much more apt to incorporate this into their lifestyle and into what they're doing. And you can definitely incorporate this as well. I do tell women, like, it's probably not a good idea to do stopping your urine or doing a Kegel when you have a really, really full bladder. But if you are, it is a way that you can see the strength of your pelvic floor by stopping your stream of urine. So now we're going to share with you another exercise that will strengthen your pelvic floor. This one is a bridge pose. So bridge exercise will help the pelvic floor, your core, right, your abdominal muscles, and hamstrings. You want to start by lying down with your knees bent and on the floor, just like we did before. Place your arms alongside your body with your palms facing down, okay? So you can kind of push down. Engage your pelvic floor, and then inhale and lift your hips up towards the ceiling, so straight up. Hold for 20 seconds, and then exhale to release your hips down slowly. You want to do this for 3 repetitions. One thing to note, if you have a tilted pelvis where your pelvis kind of tilts open like a bowl, it may be good for you to tilt your pelvis before you lift, and then think about your there being a string on your pubic bone or your belly button to lift up. Shifting planks really can also help strengthen your pelvic floor and your core muscles. This exercise, you start by lying on the floor on your belly. Prop yourself up onto your forearms like a forearm plank, and then you want to straighten your legs. It really helps to think about your having a string running through your body or a rod to kind of think about creating a nice straight line through the top of your head all the way down through your heels, okay? You want to straighten your arms and tuck your toes under, coming into that forearm plank. Then when you're in that plank, you're basically pulling in, drawing your navel up and towards your spine and engaging that pelvic floor. Your shoulders should be stacked directly over your elbows, and your hips should be in line with your shoulders. Sometimes it's helpful to do this exercise in front of a mirror if you're able to, or have someone else help you to make sure you have good alignment. Exhale to shift your shoulders back. Okay, wait a minute, excuse me. So while in that plank, you want to inhale to shift your shoulders in front of your elbows. So this is the shifting aspect. So you'll shift your self over in front of your elbows, coming in onto the balls of your feet, and then exhale to shift your shoulders back over your elbows, pressing your heels back as you do that. So I'm gonna go through this one more time. So lying on the floor on your belly, prop yourself up onto your forearms, straighten your legs and tuck your toes under, coming into a forearm plank. Draw your navel up and back like it's going up into towards your spine, and engage your pelvic floor. Your shoulders should be stacked over your elbows, and your hips should be in line with your shoulders. So while in plank, inhale to shift your shoulders in front of your elbows, coming high onto the balls of your feet. Exhale to shift your shoulders back over your elbows, pressing your heels back. You'll repeat this exercise for 15 repetitions. And I'm putting those recommendations in there. If, like with anything, it's important for you not to overdo it. So always start slow and then build your way up. Wall sits also help strengthen the pelvic floor, the core, and your legs. My children had this lovely physical education teacher who loved wall sits, and they created sort of this competition to see who could sit in a wall sit for the longest, and some of them were able to do it for over an hour. Amazing strength there. But we want to start slow. So you want to start by stand facing away from a wall, place your back against the wall, and then walk your feet out in front of you so that the wall is supporting your body, okay? And it's good to have some good traction on your feet so that your feet don't slide. Bend your knees until they are at about a 90-degree angle, and then engage that pelvic floor. So feel those pelvic floor muscles turn on. Keep your navel drawing up and in towards that spine, like I talked about before. And you can really feel that engage and turn on, so that you're sort of like pressing it against that lower back, which is up against the wall. Then you can reach your arms straight out in front of you for 60 seconds, then release. Okay, so this shouldn't take any more. And if 60 seconds is too long for you, start with a shorter and then work your way up. Split tabletop strengthens the pelvic floor and the core muscles. With this exercise, you want to start by lying down with your knees bent and your feet on the floor, just like we've done in several other ones. Place your arms alongside your body with your palms facing down. Go ahead and engage your pelvic floor and lift those feet off of the ground. We would lift those where you're parallel your shins to the ground, so that your knees are at a 90 degrees angle. You can see that in the picture. Keeping your knees at the 90-degree angle, inhale and separate your thighs into a straddle. Exhale to squat your thighs back together and contract your pelvic floor. Repeat for 15 reps. I'm going to go through this exercise one more time. So start by lying down with your knees bent and your feet on the floor. Place your arms alongside your body with your palms facing down. Engage your pelvic floor and lift your feet off the ground. Parallel your shins to the ground so that your knees are at a 90-degree angle. Keeping your knees at the 90-degree angles, inhale to separate your thighs into a straddle. Exhale to squeeze your thighs back together and contract your pelvic floor. Awesome. Right. Tabletop pelvic tilts are also another exercise that you can do to help strengthen your pelvic floor. With this one, you want to start on your hands and knees in a tabletop position, similar to you would with cat-cow and yoga. With your shoulders stacked over your wrist and your hips over your knees, you want to inhale, round your back, and tilt your tailbone down. So you'll pull that stomach up and tilt your tailbone down towards the floor. Tuck your chin in and draw your navel up and in and contract those pelvic floor muscles. So if you've done yoga before, you probably are very familiar with this type of exercise, but you may not have incorporated that pelvic floor lifting those muscles. Exhale and come back to a straight flat back. This exercise you can repeat for 15 reps. This is one of my husband's favorite exercises. Have you ever done bird dogs? Bird dog exercises will also strengthen the pelvic floor and the rest of the core muscles. It also improves balance and coordination. So those are awesome benefits as well. In this position, you want to start in a tabletop position on your hands and knees. Go ahead and engage the pelvic floor. Shift your weight onto your left hand and your right knee, so your opposite hand and knee. Then inhale to reach your right arm forward and your left leg back. And you can see in this picture where the woman is really keeping her alignment, where her body is in a straight line. Super important. Her knee is at 90 and her shoulder is directly over her hand. In this position, you want to pause for a moment to balance. Then you exhale to place your right hand and your left knee back down into the starting position. Then you'll want to shift your weight onto your right hand and your left knee. Then inhale and reach your left arm forward and your right leg back. I like to have my heel leading the way here, but if you want to point your toe, you can do that as well. If you point your heel of the leg that is extended, you will feel more of a stretch in your back of your leg and calf. So when you get to your bird dog, you pause for a moment, then exhale and place your left hand and right knee back down. This can be done for about 12 repetitions. As with all of these exercises, you want to start slow and then work your way up. All right. This next exercise is really fun. So have you ever heard of the dead bug exercise? It is not only a funny name, but also incredibly efficient core and pelvic strengthener. So here's how it's done. You want to start out lying down with your knees bent, lying on your back with your knees bent and your heels on the floor, just like we did with some of the other exercises. Extend those arms back behind your head, okay? So up over your head and engage your pelvic floor. On an exhale, you will draw your knees into your chest and crunch your shoulders up off the ground and reach towards your toes as you contract your pelvic floor. Inhale to lower your arms and heels back to the starting position. Okay, let's go through this one more time. So start by lying down on your back with your knees bent and your heels on the floor. Extend your arms back behind your head and engage your pelvic floor. On an exhale, draw your knees into your chest and crunch your shoulders up off the ground. Reach towards your toes as you contract your pelvic floor. Inhale to lower your arms and heels back to starting position. So now you're going to get ready to do the dead bug. This one you can repeat for 15 repetitions. Strengthening a weak pelvic floor can also improve joint pain, low back, and hip pain. The best way to achieve these benefits is through proper alignment and perfect posture. In all honesty, this is probably one of the most challenging exercises to ask somebody, but possibly the most beneficial. So having proper alignment places the pelvis at the best angle to support the entire abdominal wall and pelvic floor. And this makes it much easier for your pelvic floor to strengthen naturally. I will share with you guys some a website that has a good recommendations of posture. But I'll review right now how to stand correctly. So bear your weight primarily on the balls of your feet, keeping your knees slightly bent. Keep your feet about shoulder width apart and let your arms hang naturally down the sides of the body. Stand straight and tall with your shoulders pulled backwards, like those shoulder blades are kind of trying to reach to touch each other. Tuck your stomach in, keep your head level. Your earlobe should be in line with your shoulders. Do not push your head forward, backward, or to the side. Shift your weight from your toes to your heels or one foot to the other. So you'll want to maintain this posture while sitting, okay? So this is good sitting posture. Place your feet flat on the floor. Allow a small gap between the back of your knees and the front of your seat or chair, with your knees at or below the same level of your hips. Relaxing your shoulders and keep your forearms parallel to the ground. Avoid sitting in the same position for long periods of time. Now we know this is very hard if you work in front of a computer or at your desk or at a place where you have to be sitting or standing for a long time. I will share with you all some links to some really good resources for this. So hard for sure, but so important. So your head alignment is really crucial to posture. And one of the more common hindrances of proper posture is a forward head posture. When the head is misaligned, the rest of the body will follow. Those with forward head posture are more likely to have pelvic floor issues. So something that we just sometimes a lot of us don't really know about ourselves. To check your alignment, have someone take a side view photo of you. Make sure to stand naturally. If you correct your posture for the picture, then it will give you kind of a false sense of your alignment. Your ears should line up with your shoulders, hips, knees, and ankles. Tuck your chin to slightly lengthen muscles in the back of your neck and help your pelvic floor. So a lot of us, if we've done any kind of therapy with chiropractic care or PT pelvic floor therapy, sometimes different types of therapy will help us have more body awareness about how our bones and our structural supports work with our own natural muscles and ligaments to create health in our body and good posture. And sometimes we can definitely feel that when it's not in check. All right. So two of the biggest posture mistakes that hinder pelvic floor strength are clenching your glutes and having a large pelvic anterior tilt. So some of us are naturally have some of these, and if you do, you may want to reach out to a pelvic floor therapist or a chiropractor that can help you with some exercises to help you adjust this. Sometimes we don't even know that we are clenching our glutes, so this is something that you might want to take a notice of yourself. Just every once in a while, like, am I doing that? Sometimes when I would run or walk, I would notice I would clench my glutes. So understanding why this can be detrimental is important. So that constantly clenching your glutes can really be unconscious, but it can make those glute muscles weaker, and it makes it harder for your pelvic floor muscle to respond when you do need it. So clenching the glutes will often cause you to also clench those pelvic floor muscles, which in turn makes it ineffective at dealing with such stresses as sneezing. It also forces the pelvic floor muscles into sort of the shorten, tighten position, so that we don't want to put that extra stress if we don't need to. Secondly, the larger pelvic anterior tilt, so thinking about your stomach tilting out and your bottom sticking out, can make it look like you have lots of glute muscles when you don't. This does increase or decrease your abdominal strength and does nothing for the pelvic floor. So a lot of these exercises that I gave you will also strengthen abdominal muscles, which can help for people who do have a tilt in their pelvis. If you feel like it's something that is causing you discomfort, or you may want to have a big concern, you definitely might want to see a practitioner about that. All right. You can make breathing also a pelvic floor exercise by coordinating the diaphragm and the pelvic floor with each other. So as the diaphragm expands, it pushes pressure down onto the pelvic floor and naturally strengthens those pelvic muscles. However, most of us are guilty of shallow breathing, right? I know I am. Sometimes I even stop breathing for a while. So it is important to take nice, deep, full breaths, which can encourage strength in our pelvic floor. But shallow breathing encourages sort of that forward head position that we're talking about and disengages the diaphragm and the pelvic floor benefits. Okay, so let's review how to perform good breathing while sitting. You want to sit comfortably with your knees bent and your shoulders, head, and neck relaxed. Place one hand on your upper chest Okay, and then the other below your rib cage. This will allow you to feel your diaphragm move as you breathe. Breathe in slowly through your nose so that your stomach moves out against your hand. The hand on your chest should remain as still as possible. Tighten your stomach muscles, letting them fall inward as you exhale through pursed lips. The hand on your upper chest must remain as still as possible. Right. So, core exercises, as I mentioned, are very crucial for supporting both proper alignment in our body and posture, as well as strengthening the pelvic floor. So in order to properly support our abdominals, pelvis, and surrounding muscles, the hips also need to work well. I will share with you guys a good exercise is a rotating lunge with resistance. I can share that with you, and also just planking. Definitely our body, using our muscles in the proper way through different exercises can be very beneficial to our entire body and our health. All right. Let's talk real quick about some of the resources that I used in this webinar. I really think it's super important for women to consider the impact of your pregnancies and childbirth on your pelvic floor muscles, as well as other things that we do in life. And I want to give you the tools to be able to strengthen that area so that you can feel like you can do whatever you need to do with your children, jump on the trampoline or all of that fun stuff. All right. So I'm going to review the exercises that we talked about: the bridge, a plank, the wall sit, the split tabletop, the tabletop pelvis tilts, the bird dog, the dead bug crunches, and then those diaphragm breathings. So posture is really important to consider and plays a significant role on strengthening and supporting the pelvic floor, as well as proper head alignment and breathing. So important to consider as you're looking to help improve your pelvic floor muscles. If you're ready to start doing that or feel like you need more support, it is important to reach out to a trained pelvic floor therapist. Typically, PTs are trained additionally to know specifically to help support women with pelvic floor therapy. Later on in life, doing those exercises will allow you to avoid having things like incontinence and those kind of things. So I will email out everyone all the information and the resources of where I got all this so that you can look up specific things that you might be interested in. I think it is so important to take care of ourselves and to be able to have the best health in our pelvic area, and definitely the pelvic floor is so impactful in all of the organs and systems there for reproduction for us. So it's super important. I'm going to close this off, and we're going to take questions if you guys have it. And thanks so much for being with us this afternoon to talk about pelvic floor therapy. And I hope you enjoy the exercises that I shared with you today. And like I said before, it's really important to seek out a provider that is specialized in pelvic floor therapy if you really have some issues that you need to have addressed, or you feel like you do, right? Either one of those. All right. I'm going to stop sharing and turn off the recording.